What's up? It is Raphael with NBA Draft Junkies podcast. I have a guest today, another person I've met on NBA Draft Twitter, which is like a family of its own in a sense. It's just a bunch of guys that talk NBA Draft, and a lot of times these are people that you've probably never met, but you feel like you're a family, you feel like you're friends with them because you read so much of their tweets and their takes and have so many discussions with them. And so today my guest is Will Morris. Now, I know I've mentioned in previous podcasts that there are guests that have very interesting mock drafts or big boards. But this, today, I can guarantee you will be the most unique one, if not most, up there, unique mock drafts that you've seen on the NBA Draft Junkies podcast. But before we get into that, Will, thanks for coming on. How's everything going?
Oh, it's going well. Thank you so much for having me. This is the first podcast I've been a guest on. So,
Really?
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, I'm going to call it out first of many, because like I said, I've been following your work on, your NBA draft tweets, and you're knowledgeable. And if it's something that you want to like get into, I think that you have a pretty good eye for talent. But more importantly, you're very confident in your takes. So let's go.
All right.
First pick of the 2020 NBA draft. The Minnesota Timberwolves are on the clock. And if you are in charge of the Timberwolves, who is your first pick?
Yeah, so this is probably going to ruffle some feathers right away, but I'd go with Aleksej Pokusevski. Played for Olympiacos in the Greek second division this year. Become somewhat of a polarizing player, I guess. There's some people, especially on draft Twitter, who are really high on him. Then you see him, in the 20s and stuff on a lot of the mainstream mocks or boards. But to me, I know the efficiency wasn't really there for him in FIBA for Serbia or in the Greek second division this year, but the skills are really hard to ignore. And then when you combine that with the fact that he's 7 feet tall and moves like a guard.
And he's only 18.
Yeah, exactly. He's the youngest player in this class by, I think, a few months. He's even younger than like BJ Boston and Cade Cunningham, Jalen Johnson, like a whole bunch of guys in next year's class too. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the main criticisms of him is that he's only played in the Greek second division and in like youth FIBA tournaments. So he hasn't really played against high level competition yet, but he's also extremely young. So, I mean, if you're going to hold that against him for playing against men in Greece, then I think, you might have to discount like every high school player in America's film too, just because he's that young,
That's a good point because, the same high school kids that everyone is talking about and raving about in the 2021 class, as of now, have only played against other high school kids also. And he, like you said, he's younger than a few of the guys that are projected top 5 picks in the 2021 draft.
Yeah. And I mean, even like, the guys in next year's class that people are talking about, but even someone like James Wiseman, who's didn't play too much in college.
3 games.
3 games, 2 of them against, what was it?
Chicago State and South Carolina something.
Yes, not good teams. One of them was like 340th in like the KenPom rankings. So like, not very good teams. He played EYBL, but the numbers there weren't great. And then other than that, it was just Memphis East, So like, I guess the like criticism there, like if you're going to criticize Pokusevski for that, then I think Wiseman shouldn't be a top 10 pick either, or like a top 3 pick.
That's valid. And it's something that I haven't thought of from that perspective. And anybody that's been listening to this podcast has heard me tell this story over and over again, but I was actually there at the tournament in Greece at the under 19s or no under 18s, where he kind of had his coming out party. So I saw all the talent, I saw the skills, I saw everything that you've seen, that the reason why you have him number one. But I also saw like the downside of just wondering like how he'll hold up physically. And then despite his talent, I always felt like he didn't have like the greatest motor. If he had like this motor, this energy, I think that he could have dominated like consistently. Because I know in that tournament he had like that one game early on where he had like a triple double, and then the numbers kind of declined since then. And then I'm still trying to figure out why he played 6 minutes against Germany and just never got back in the game and didn't play the rest of the tournament. I was at that game. I didn't see any ice on him. I didn't see an injury. I didn't see anything like that. So I had some question marks on him since then. But overall, talent-wise, man, this guy has it. Like you said, he moves like a guard. I think his natural position is a wing, but he's 7 feet tall. So you're going to probably put him on the block. And I think he has an upside as a shooter, a passer. I mean, he's just a big weapon in a sense. He is a lot of things that he can do. If he maxes out his talent, he should be a switchable defender because of how coordinated he is. And he was a good shot blocker in that tournament. He picked up a lot of steals. Talent is there. And, like there's the shock factor of seeing him over, these guys that everybody's familiar with and everybody's been hearing about. But once you like kind of break it down, explain it the way you did, and then let's say he has a decent season this year, and then he would definitely be a top 5 pick in the 21 draft. So like you said, everything you said made sense to me. It's just the shock value of seeing him number one, especially for Minnesota, when you can think maybe you can get him at 17 also.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just those skills are like pretty eye-popping. Like he's making skip passes and pick and roll and stuff, and like manipulating defenders with pace as a ball handler, like shooting off of pin downs. Like it's the skills are crazy, and it's just not stuff you see a lot. Obviously, there's like a lot of kinks to work out, but like the closeouts, especially, like he has some of the most ugly closeouts I've ever seen. Or like, I don't know if he's like, even just perimeter defense. I know he has potential there, but like, he'll just get beat sometimes, give up on plays. Yeah. But to me, the skills are just, it's hard to ignore.
Yeah. And that's why I said, like, sometimes the motor isn't there. Sometimes you can tell, at least in my opinion, I feel like he's so naturally skilled and so naturally talented that everything has come easy to him. And I wonder how he'd play if he's thrown in a situation in like the G League where he's going against a bunch of hungry guys who are trying to make a name off themselves because they know that all the eyes will be on him. Or he's in a situation where he's not the most talented player on the floor, or he's head and shoulders more talented than everybody else 9 times out of 10. And now maybe he'll have to work a little bit harder, which if he does, man, you're a superstar. But again, it just like my eye test says, this is all natural skills that he has developed, or not even really developed, was just born with. And now that everybody's kind of looking at him, he's going to have to maximize him.
Yeah. I 100% agree with everything you said there. Like his mental approach to the game, that like you brought it up, it's like puzzling at times. I was watching the ANGT, I think it was 2 years ago in Belgrade. They had some of those games on YouTube. And there's times where like he'll turn the ball over and he'll just like hang his head and not get back on defense. Yeah. And it's stuff like that. And I feel like watching him a little bit in the Greek second division this year, and in FIBA, like he cut that out a little bit. Like in that tournament, I thought it was pretty bad in that tournament. And like, as he's gotten older, it's gotten progressively better. At least from what I've seen. Like obviously he still has those plays where he's not really showing too much effort, being lackadaisical and whatnot. But yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I imagine that comes with youth. I remember I felt the same way when I first saw Sekou Doumbouya play. He was like 15, and I remember looking at my notes, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this kid he's so immature. He doesn't, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that." And then I was able to find out at the time that he was 15 playing at the under 18s, and so his immaturity it made more sense to me because he was so much younger than everybody else. But I mean, there's still signs of that now a little bit also. But again, Sekou is super young. He was one of the youngest guys, if not the youngest in last year's draft. So I think, it's just one of those things that you have to kind of live with when you're selecting teenagers so high and forcing them to be adults in a grown man league. So it's something to look at, but I don't know if it's that big of a concern right now because again, he's 18 years old. All right, so that was the first shocker, right? So here comes the second one. So the Golden State Warriors are selecting second in the draft. And who do you have the Warriors taking at number 2?
Yeah, so I have them going with Devin Vassell, the 6'7", 6'6.5" wing from Florida State. I think Vassell sort of has this reputation as this like very safe prospect, not someone with a lot of upside, but who can probably come in and contribute right away. I agree that he can contribute right away, and I also understand why one might think he doesn't have that much upside. And having him here at 2 definitely concerns me a little bit for that reason. Like Vassell really struggles to get inside. His free throw rate is like 0.22 or something like that, which is not great. He's like 190 pounds, very skinny. But I think he has more upside than people give him credit for. He has shown the ability to create his own shot off the dribble. And it's not really just flashes. He was legitimately a fantastic off the dribble shooter this year. Per 40 minutes, he's had, I think it was 2.05 dribble jumpers per 40 minutes. And Tatum had 2.07 at Duke. So he's just under that. I'm not saying he's going to be another Jason Tatum, but like, I don't know, as like a secondary creating wing, there's some shot creation chops here. And I don't think he gets enough credit for it.
Yeah, I agree. He's one of my high upside guys. He's a combination of high upside and safe pick at the same time. I've been on the record of saying if he develops his ball handling, gets stronger, and improves more so as a shot creator, because right now I feel like if you close out on him, his game is 2 dribbles, pull up, hard drive to the right, spin left, pull up, mid-range pull up. I'm hoping the reason why he doesn't attack the rim as much is because he's so skinny. I'm hoping if he bulks up, then that will improve the amount of times he attacks the rim, which will increase his free throw rate. But I also feel like if he doesn't add that to his game, he's still going to be a high-level starter for quite a few years to come. There are concerns, again, about the weight because he's been in school 2 years and he still is rail thin. So you wonder, 2 years isn't a long time, but you wonder if he is going to be able to add a lot of weight to his frame or get a lot stronger. But yeah, I think best case scenario, like really best case scenario, if he adds everything to his game, I think he could be like a Paul George type.
Yeah, I don't even disagree with that. I mean, like you mentioned, like you want to see him improving the handling, and I agree with that, being able to get to the rim more. Vassell is like on a really rapid development curve. He wasn't really doing too much last year at Florida State. Clearly got a lot better, had a huge role on the team this year. And he's also a really young sophomore. I think he's going to be like 20 and like 3 months or something like that on draft day. So I think he's even younger than like Cole Anthony. Like he's a very, very young sophomore who's on a rapid development curve. And, everyone's talking about how this draft doesn't have like a lot of star gambles or whatever. So like maybe you just take a chance on Vassell, hope he can put on the weight, see if the handling can improve, and who knows, maybe you have like a star.
Yeah, I agree. It makes sense to me because I definitely think this draft could be like 2013, where you don't have like this prospect at the top of the draft that was so good in college that you project to be a star. But I think somewhere in the first round, you're going to end up with possibly an all NBA player somewhere. I mean, you look at that draft, you had Giannis and Gobert, who weren't in the lottery, end up being MVP and Defensive Player of the Year and All NBA. So it would not shock me at all if this draft has a similar type outcome to where someone who's projected very high in the lottery ends up being a bust, and then someone that falls out of the lottery could end up being, a franchise guy in a sense. I don't know who, but like, all right, let's give an example. Let's say Pokusevski falls out of the first round, and he ends up not the first round, but out of the lottery. He ends up being like 16 or 17, and it kind of reminds you of Giannis, to where you got this raw, skinny prospect playing second division in Greece, who teams saw the skill set, but they were just afraid to draft because the footage wasn't all there and so on, and Giannis ended up being MVP. So not saying Pokusevski could end up being like that, but there are some similarities in a sense, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's part of the reason why, looking at like the way I did this mock draft, it's like very different from the consensus. And like, if you just go with the grain, especially in a class like this, where, there's no, I mean, I think everyone agrees that like, this isn't a great class at the top, but like if you just go with the grain, you're basically guaranteeing that you're going to be like wrong when projecting these guys, So yeah, to me, Pokusevski at 1 makes sense just because I think the upside's there, and he could totally flame out. But the upside's there. And then Vassell, I think, is a pretty safe option at 2, but he also has upside. So like that's kind of the exact prospect you want, right? Like a guy with a high floor and a high ceiling.
Yep.
So yeah, and we haven't even talked about Vassell on the defensive end. Like his team defense is absolutely nuts. The way he covers ground, can protect the rim from the weak side. He doesn't even have that long of a wingspan. I think he only has like a 6'10" wingspan or something like that. So it's not like Mikal Bridges or something like that. But like the instincts are just wild.
Yeah, I think he would be a good fit with Golden State also. I don't think he goes number 2, but you put him in that situation where it's a team that's ready to win now. You give them a rookie that's ready to come in and contribute right away. He helps them on the defensive end. He knocks down open shots, and then it gives him time to develop the skills that we both agree that we think that he has that can help him become, the player that I think in best case scenario he could become, which is like a Paul George type. So let's move on to numero 3. The first 2 have been shockers. This one it's still somewhat in that range. It may not be as big of a shocker as the first 2, but who do you think is a good fit for the Hornets at number 3?
Yeah, so for Charlotte at 3, I have Killian Hayes from Ulm. he's one of my favorite players in this class to watch. I just think he's so crafty with his counters. His off the dribble scoring has developed like crazy. I mean, I watched him like a little bit at Cholet, and I did not think he was going to be like shooting those double step backs that he was at Ulm this year. So that was, and it wasn't like a few highlight plays. He was doing it every game during the season. The footwork, sidestep, stuff like that really developed. And then the pick and roll passing is obviously amazing. Just toys with defenders, manipulating them with his eyes. And then defensively, I don't think he gets enough credit either. He's 6'5", long, has good instincts off the ball, and has improved a lot as an on-ball defender. Again, watching him at Cholet, like some of the like point of attack defense stuff is just brutal to watch. And then at Ulm this year, he was like a legitimately good point of attack defender. So to me, it's like this is a guy who has a lot of skills, and he's on a sort of like Vassell, like a rapid development curve. Like the guy was getting better every game during the season, and was way better this year than he was last year. So to me, that's a guy who definitely should be picked in the top 3 or 4.
I agree 100%, and that's why I like him over LaMelo. I think LaMelo is a little flashier, and he's obviously taller. He has more pizzazz and sizzle to his name and maybe a little bit more to his game. But I think overall, just if I had to put them up side by side and say who's better at this, all across the board, I think Hayes is the better player. And I'm in the minority here. I mean, I guess you're in the group that has Hayes over Ball, and me, you, Kevin O'Connor. It may only be a few of us sitting on this hill, but I really think Hayes is the safer and better player. I think that Melo doesn't really play any defense, and I think Hayes has the potential to be a pretty strong defender. And I think that Hayes is probably going to be a better shooter than LaMelo. Again, like I said, he's not as big. I have Melo slightly ahead of him as a passer, and it's not by a whole lot. And I think if Hayes just works on that right hand, then he's going to be special. And he's doing all of this playing with one hand. Like, you might as well tie the right arm behind his back. But I think he's going to be special. I think his finishing at the rim is underrated. He's one of the best in this class as far as guards, despite him not being like this high flyer and this guy that makes a bunch of plays above the rim. And also the fact that he was only finishing with one hand around the rim. And I just think that he's the best point guard in this draft.
Yeah, for me, it's 2 things that, well, a few things, I guess, that he needs to work on. Like the off the dribble shooting could be more consistent, but like, I think that's hard not to buy. The off the catch shooting scares me a little bit. The mechanics there are a little bit inconsistent shot to shot. He just doesn't really look comfortable shooting off the catch, but
yeah. But what point guard that's used to having the ball in his hands does?
Exactly.
I mean, Cole Anthony may be the only one that I can think of that is used to dominating the ball in a sense, but is really good shooting off the catch at this stage in his career, so early in his career. So,
yeah, there aren't a lot. And I mean, the indicators are there. I don't know how strong an indicator like touch around the rim is or like floaters and stuff like that, but his free throw percentage was in the high 80s this year.
Almost 88%, I believe.
Yeah, it's not like a Markelle Fultz situation where like he shot 64% at the free throw line. Hayes clearly has like very good touch. So yeah, it's hard to bet against his shooting. And then the other concern I have with him, as you mentioned, is the lack of a right hand, which I think it's overblown a little bit because like he has counters to get back to his left. So
all lefties do. I'm left-handed. Not saying I was a great player, but every lefty can get back left. Like, I mean, think about Ginobili. You could force him right, and he just knew how to go right one dribble, step back, get to his left, jab. So, yeah, I mean, all lefties can get back left. It's just something that we have.
Yeah, I mean, even like Harden doesn't have the greatest right hand. And then in this class, like Denny Avdia struggles to go left, Tyrese Halliburton. So I mean, it's not like Hayes is the only guy with this like one concern. I think it's getting overblown a little bit. It's definitely a real concern though, because he can like throw crazy live dribble passes with his left, but with his right, it's like gather, take a second, and then like skip it to the corner, which can,
that window closed in the NBA.
Yeah, exactly. Defense can recover and guy can make a play in the passing lane. But
that's where I think that he becomes even that much more dangerous of a passer if he can develop that. If he can run pick and rolls to the right side of the court and make those live dribble skip passes, if he can do that going both ways, he's going to be tough to stop, especially if he's knocking down shots and he's an effective scorer. So I like Hayes. You don't have to convince me, but you may have to convince the audience because everybody's in love with LaMelo. And speaking of LaMelo, you have him going next to Chicago at 4.
I do. And I'm definitely, I don't know. There's people who are like really in on LaMelo, have him like tier of his own, number 1. There's also people I've seen who are down on him. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I think what he brings to the table is really hard to ignore. Like, he's an incredible talent. The way he handles the ball, the way he passes,
the thought process, the creativity to where he'll live dribble, and then he'll just whip a underhand pass to a cutter or behind the back pass in traffic. Like, that part is amazing. Just the confidence to do it. You have to have the confidence, then the skill set, and then those passes are on the money. They're pretty much accurate. Just a crazy talent.
Yeah, I mean, he's throwing like full court baseball passes. Like the second his feet hit the ground off a rebound, and like behind the back pocket passes and stuff like that. Like, and he's still like, I don't know, his assist to turnover ratio wasn't like crazy, even though or crazy like bad.
You would think it would be because he's such a high risk, high reward passer. But yeah, his turnover percentage was really good in my opinion. Like I said, especially considering he's not throwing safe passes at all. I've mentioned that in a couple of videos, but I felt like sometimes the shot selection is as bad as a turnover, but I digress.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's, I guess my concern with LaMelo is that the shot selection, it's a bit all over the place at times. Like he'll pull up from wherever, despite the fact that he's not a great shooter at the moment. I do think like he'll probably be like a plus impact shooter in the NBA still, just because to me, like the best indicator for shooting success in the NBA is volume, and he takes a lot of shots. And shooters shoot. Like a guy like Robert Woodard had like 40% from 3 this year, but he's taken like 2 per 100 possessions. So it's like Tyler Bay's in that same boat. So like, I mean, LaMelo is taking crazy stuff, so the percentage isn't going to be great. But he shot 25% from 3 this year. The free throw percentage was,
how many attempts? Was it like 5 or 6 attempts a game?
Yeah, 5, something like that.
It was on volume. That's scary.
Yeah. And the free throw percentage was like 70s, I think. So not like Hayes level good, but still solid. What's more concerning to me is that LaMelo might not be able to like get to the rim and finish I think he's pretty contact averse right now. Very low free throw rate. And
I think what helps him a little bit in that is he has such good touch on his floater.
He does.
So, because he doesn't want the contact, I think he kind of makes up for it because his touch on the floater is crazy. And he has deep floater range. I mean, it's not Juan Carlos Navarro range, but he does have pretty decent range where, his floater, sometimes you feel like you might as well shot a pull-up jumper at the free throw line instead of a floater. So I think that helps him because, like you said, he is pretty much contact diverse. But he's so thin, like most 18 or 19-year-olds are. And then, we saw him playing in a grown man league. So I get that.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, it's just like the upside is pretty appealing. Like some of the stuff he does is incredible, but like there's a chance he's not really able to score at all. Like what if he can't finish and his 3-point jumper like never gains any efficiency at all? Like it's one thing if he's like Luka Doncic shot like 31% from three this year,
but
like,
they're all contested step backs.
Yeah, exactly. Like if LaMelo is like at 30% on like volume and he's scoring and stuff, like it's probably fine. But like, what if his jump shot just isn't good? There could be like no way for him to actually score in the NBA. But I think the passing is so good, and like the handling that he'll probably be like at worst, like a respectable starting point guard in the NBA.
Well, if the shooting doesn't pan out, then it kind of eliminates his greatest asset as a passer because, I feel like the best passers in the NBA are LeBron, Harden, Luka, but those guys are also 25 point per game scorers. I mean, Chris Paul is in that range, but he's still a threat to score to where you have to respect his ability to, get to his pull up and all of that. So it kind of opens up everything as a passer. I feel like if you're not a threat to score, then when you're running the pick and rolls, the teams are just going to go under, and it's just going to make it really hard for you to maximize your passing instincts and your skills. So I think scoring for Melo is the most important thing he should work on because it unlocks his creativity as a passer.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think what I was more trying to get at there was like, if he hits like his 30th or 40th percentile outcome or something like that, maybe he's just like, I don't know, like a slightly worse shooting version of his brother, Lonzo, who like has, like serious advantage creation problems. But as like a guy passing against a tilted defense, he's very good. As a guy like initiating offense in transition, he's very good. But as a guy who's like, like running an offense and is like primary half court initiator, he's not really anything, And I think, if LaMelo's half court scoring never really develops, that's probably what he's going to be, something like that, where you can like, he still has like his flashy passes, but it's all coming against like a tilted defense or in transition rather than like him like doing all this crazy stuff in the pick and roll. Because if he can't score, they can just play the pass,
Yep, I agree. All right. Number 5, which is the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? Yeah.
Yep, that's the Cavs.
So number 5, and this is, I mean, obviously with the first 2 being big shockers, so there's going to be more down the line. And you're the only person that I've seen have Anthony Edwards outside of the top 2. So you have him going 5 to Cleveland. The floor is yours to explain why Anthony Edwards drops to number 5.
Yeah, I mean, Edwards, I'm not going to lie, he really scares me. I think like he's obviously a super talent. Guys with his physical tools don't come around often. He's 6'5", 225. 6'9" wingspan, and super bursty, powerful athlete. And, he's like a really skilled shot creator too. Like, you obviously watched the second half of that Michigan State game that everyone's always talking about, where he scored 30 points in the second half. Yep. That was crazy to watch, So I think the scoring upside is definitely real. What scares me is the decision-making stuff on both ends of the floor, really. Offensive side, takes some crazy pull-ups when, he's
contested pull-ups.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's not hitting them at a high rate. He shot 30% on long twos this year. And I think 29% from three. So he's not really hitting them at too high a rate. When he could, get downhill and score around the rim, maybe not every play, because I don't know if his handle is to that level where he can just beat anyone off the dribble whenever he wants. But I wish he went downhill more. I think he has the ability to make basic passing reads, but he also misses a lot of windows. Sometimes he'll just decide hey, I'm going to take a shot on this possession. And he'll just put his head down and take a shot without really looking, even if there's an open man. The defense is probably what scares me the most. And I think people look at him and say, oh yeah, he's 6'5" with a 6'9" wingspan, built like a truck. So he's probably, you can develop him into a good defender. And this might be a hot take, but I actually trust LaMelo more on the defensive end than I trust Edwards. To me, LaMelo, he's 6'8", so you don't have to stick him on the team's primary ball handler. You can use him off ball, and he obviously has incredible basketball instinct. So there's hope for him as a guy who can do stuff in the passing lanes. Edwards, you don't need him he's big, you can play him off ball, but it's his off ball defense that's so bad. He just gets beat all the time on back cuts. We'll just lose track of his man. Sometimes he'll just leave his man and double the ball handler for whatever reason. And then the on ball defense is pretty terrible too.
But he showed flashes that he can, the Michigan State game. I don't know what, that was an outlier performance. He showed his potential on both ends of the floor. I think because it was so early in the season, we're all expecting more games like that, which didn't really happen.
Yeah. And yeah, that the second half of that game was definitely crazy. He, as an on-ball defender, there was a play in that game where someone set a screen and he just went right through it, and it didn't matter. And he just slid with it. I think it was Winston, forced a turnover or something like that. But there's also times where he'll just die on screens, and he'll just give up on plays. So yeah, I think the defense, there's definitely I think his ceiling is capped on that end. I don't think you're going to get you're never going to see Edwards put it all together on that end, just because based on where he's at now, he's just so far away. I think there's a chance he's only a slight negative. And then the floor is really, really, really low on that end. He could be his rookie season on his rookie contract. The defense is going to be really ugly. I can't even imagine, he could have a minus, I don't know, a -3 defensive PIPM or something like that. It's not going to be good. Yeah, Edwards definitely worries me. But I'm still relatively in on him. It's hard to go crazy ranking him super low.
Yeah.
Just because, it's second half of that Michigan State game, and other times throughout the season where like he looked amazing, you know?
Yep. All right. So since we're talking about Edwards' defense as a potentially what holds him back, now let's talk about a guy who you have going number 6, which is the exact opposite. You have Isaac Okoro going to his hometown Atlanta Hawks. Now, if you can swap those players out, then you have the certified guaranteed superstar at the top of this class. So, all right, let's talk about Okoro's. First of all, let's talk about his defense first, and then we'll transition into his offense and your concerns, if you have any, on the offensive end of the floor.
Yeah. Okoro is an awesome defensive player, really great on the ball. I don't have his exact measurements in front of me, but I think he's like 6'6", very strong. He doesn't have a crazy wingspan, but he moves laterally so well, and he's so light on his feet. If you're looking for a guy who you can like stick on the big wing creators, like the Lukas of the world or whoever, Harden, this is the guy. Like, this is the guy you want defending them man to man during the season. It's kind of the opposite of Vassell almost, where I think Okoro's off-ball defense is very good, and like he clearly tries. I don't think he's like incredible at covering ground like Vassell is, and I think Vassell has some warts as an on-ball defender. I don't think he's an amazing lateral mover. So sort of the opposite in that regard, but I still think Okoro's off-ball defense is generally good. It's just not special, but the on-ball has the chance to be very, very good. I don't know if like maybe like second team all defense type of ceiling, but yeah, I guess shifting over to the offensive end, I think there's a lot of flashes for him as like a secondary creator. He's a guy who can, like, he's a legitimately good passer from the wing, and he's throwing passes off the live dribble, can handle the ball pretty well. I watched him a little bit in high school, and his handle has definitely improved since his senior year of high school. So, you know, his passing is functional. And then as a driver, I mean, the man is a free throw rate tank, like 0.5 free throw rate or something like that. The issue is he's not a great free throw shooter, and he's not really a good shooter in general. By the end of the season, teams were kind of just leaving him open, which is definitely scary.
Yeah, and he wasn't a confident shooter either. Once teams weren't guarding him, he still didn't want to take shots. There were possessions where I felt like he was open, and he only shot it because he didn't have another option. It's not like he shot it because, hey, I'm open, I'm going to knock this down, I'm going to make the defense pay. It was like he'll shoot it or he'll catch it, and he'll want someone to swing it to and realize everyone's covered, and then that's when he has to shoot it. And, you know, like I said, you could see that his confidence was pretty low in his shot. And, you know, like, to me, not just me, but everybody who's watched Okoro knows that his shot is going to determine his outcome. If he can become decent, then, you know, like you said, you think he has the potential to be second team all defense, but does he get the minutes on the floor if he can't be respectable on offense? Because I think the days of having the not Terrence Roberson, that's way back in the day. The days of having like an Andre Roberson on your team starting and playing 35 minutes a game, I don't know if it's possible in today's NBA, especially in the playoffs where teams are just going to, you know, just sag all the way off and just use that defender to double on your main ball handler. So he's going to have to improve. We've had plenty of time. I mean, season ended in March, and it's pretty much November right now. So he's had a lot of time to just sit and knock down corner threes. He doesn't have to come off pin downs. He doesn't have to do anything, but at least shoot 33% from the corner, and it helps him out. If he can do that, and then, as time goes on, he improves, but shooting is the key for him.
Yeah, and for me, one of the keys also is just like situation. I picked him to the Hawks here because I think that's the perfect situation for him. To me, I think one thing the Hawks should do is try to use Trae Young off ball a little more.
Yep.
Because his creation load is just too heavy right now.
Yep.
And I think,
which makes him not even want to defend even more when he's already has disadvantages as a defender as is.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you get Okoro there as like a secondary creator type. I think you can mask some of his offensive weaknesses because, like with the ball in his hands, I think he can be a good offensive player because he's such an explosive driver, such a great slasher. But if his role is like, all right, stand in the corner, we're going to run a pick and roll, they're going to throw a skip past you, you shoot, it's like not great.
Be clogged.
Yeah. And, if he gets mocked to, I don't know, a team, or not mocked to, drafted to a team that already has a bunch of creators, he's probably going to, be stuck in the corner, and he's going to have to shoot a lot of those corner threes. So yeah, to me, I think Atlanta is a great situation for him because you can mask some of his offensive weaknesses. But yeah, I can see Okoro struggling to stay on the floor if he's on a team where he's, like I said, stuck in the corner, doesn't really have any creation load.
Right. All right. Now we're at the Detroit Pistons at number 7. And this is, I've seen plenty of mocks. I've seen probably more mocks than I should. And this is one that I haven't seen. So you have the Detroit Pistons selecting Okongwu at number 7. Which to me, it makes sense, especially if Christian Wood isn't going to be back or if they move Blake or whatever. So in your opinion, why is Okongwu a good fit? I've heard people compare him to Andre Drummond, saying that if they just got rid of Drummond, why bring in another Drummond? So what is your thoughts on Okongwu at 7 to Detroit?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, like, at this point in the draft, Okongwu at 7 is great value. And I'm not comparing Okongwu to Drummond. I think Okongwu is going to be a lot more impactful than Drummond. I'm not a big Drummond fan, but I thought of that, like, they just traded away their centers just to, draft a center at 7th overall. And I think people on draft Twitter especially are like, don't draft centers early. But I think we saw in the playoffs that there are specific types of centers that you can draft early. And I think Okongwu is one of them. I think these like coverage versatile bigs who you can like play up high in pick and roll coverage and, late switch and not get killed. Those are the types of those are the types of centers that it's okay to draft high. Like Drummond wasn't that. He was more traditional. And I think, Okongwu, it's not like he's taking outside jumpers, but he's modern in the sense that he's incredibly mobile. To me, I think what makes Okongwu appealing also is I guess the development curve, like throughout the season, from game 1 to game 31 or whatever, that last game against UCLA, he was like making reads on the short roll and stuff. I'm not saying he's going to be like a Bam level passer, but it's clear that his passing has improved. Like he can put the ball on the deck a little bit and drive in a straight line. So yeah, I'm not like, there's people who will have Okongwu at like 3 or 4. I don't think he's like that transcendent of a big to the point where I'd have him that high, but like, I think he's in that like special archetype of big where I'd be comfortable using like mid-lottery selection on him.
All right, that sounds fair. So now another shocker, number 8, New York Knicks. I love this one. All right, so who do you have the New York Knicks taking at number 8?
Yeah, so at number 8, I have the Knicks taking Grant Riller, the 23-year-old from the College of Charleston. Yeah, I don't know. I think the Knicks fans are going to absolutely hate that one just because 8 is very high for him.
It's the highest I've seen by far. And I like Grant Riller. I like Grant Riller a lot. But, 8 is high.
Yeah, and I understand that. Like, in terms of usage of assets, like, you don't want to really draft him 8th in real life because that's not, like, where his stock is at right now. Like, draft him at, like, 27th or something if you're the Knicks because he'll probably still be there. But in this mock, I have him there at 8th just because I personally am very high on him. And I understand a lot of the concerns. Being 23 years old and playing in the Colonial Athletic Conference isn't a great look, especially when you consider that his defense wasn't good this year. And I think even like people who like Riller a lot, like will try to defend him in that regard. And I think it's hard to do. Like his defense wasn't great. I think there's more flashes of confidence than there was with someone like Anthony Edwards. Like I think he can be like a slight negative on that end because, he can move laterally, has some positional strength. He can like make basic rotations and stuff, but you're not getting a guy who's going to be great on the defensive end. But it might not matter that much because Riller's offensive game is pretty incredible. Yeah.
Great finisher, creative with the handle, strong, he's a scorer. Like I think that he can come in and be a 3-level scorer early in his career. Even though early in his career, his age is a lot more advanced than other guys who are entering the draft this year. But yeah, I like Grant Riller a lot.
Yeah. I've watched a good bit of Grant Riller. I've written a few like individual player reports, have like a little blog, and he's one of them. So I did a lot of film work for him there. And his scoring ability is just it's unbelievable. And just looking at some of the statistics, he's the only player in college basketball history in his height range to ever have 200 rim attempts in a season and shoot 70% from the rim. So that's impressive.
Yeah.
That's like very, very special. One of the best college finishers for guards ever. And then if you look at like his efficiency numbers, considering his usage, because he carried heavy usage for Charleston this year and still had 60% true shooting. The guys in that category are Steph Curry, James Harden, Damian Lillard. Jimmer's in there, but there's a lot of other concerns with Jimmer. Guys with that usage and that efficiency have tended to work out. I also wrote another like statistical analysis where I was looking at guards who got to the rim and like how that impacts their success as creators in the NBA. And one thing I found is that guards who can, and this is probably going to sound obvious when I say it, but there's a lot of guys who get drafted highly who don't get to the rim by themselves a lot and aren't great shooters and they're small. And the guys who get to the rim a lot, who are like even respectable shooters, and like have, I think the threshold I use was like 0.2 dunks per 40 or something. So basically, like, being a respectable enough athlete, being able to get to the rim by yourself, and being able to shoot at a decent level. The list of names is like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Kyrie Irving, Oladipo, Lillard, McCollum, and Riller is in that group. And even the guys who, you know, who didn't like reach that star level outcome on that group are like Jordan Clarkson and DeLon Wright and guys like that who are still respectable players in the NBA. And that's part of the reason why I like Riller so much. Like, I think there's a chance he becomes maybe not a Damian Lillard level scorer, because I don't know if his shooting is at that level.
That's tough to compare.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's tough to compare him to one of those guys, but like, I think he could be a really great scorer. But if he's not like a guy you want to run your offense through, he's probably the perfect second side creator, because his first step off the catch is tops in this class. Maybe second to Anthony Edwards, but and then like finishing against the tilted defense, it's going in every time, you know? Yep. So to me, Riller's ceiling is appealing. And then I think that there's like him at like his 40th percentile outcome is like a pretty good second side creator. And, you know, there's a chance it doesn't work out with him because the defense might be questionable, that bad, but.
All right, let's go to number 9. It's the Washington Wizards, and it's Tyrese Maxey. So this is probably the highest I've seen No, I take that back. I think somebody had him at number 7. But do you think Maxey's stock is increasing because of the whole Kentucky influence? And then having his own workout on ESPN didn't hurt either. So, but what are your thoughts on Maxey going to the Wizards? I think it's a really good fit, especially considering that, you know, he can learn from Wall and Bill. I actually think that any of the point guards in this class going to Washington, I think is a pretty decent fit, because you can come in and run the second unit and whatever your strengths are. If you're a scorer that needs to develop into a point guard, Washington gives you that opportunity. And so, just wanted to hear your thoughts on why you have Maxey going to the Wizards.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not super high on Maxey as like this big time self creator. I know some people on draft Twitter are like even higher than me on him, like top 4 or 5. I've seen him up there, but to me, I think he's, other than Riller, he's up there as in like that 6'3" range as like a really strong second side creator, because he's a great finisher, attacking against a tilted defense, very powerful first step. I'm not comfortable taking him any higher than this, just because to me he doesn't like have that like handle or self-creation threat to the point where like I'd have him any higher. But I think as a second side creator, he's about as good as it gets. The spot up shooting will need to improve if he's going to like reach that outcome. I think he's a better shooter than he gets credit for.
Then the numbers showed.
Yeah.
The numbers didn't show him as a really good shooter.
Yeah. And that's probably like, listen to any podcast that talks about Tyrese Maxey, and like, that's the classic saying. It's like, he's a better number than the shooters show. I mean, there's a chance he's not a great shooter, but like the free throw percentage is really good.
The touch around the rim is great.
Those floaters and stuff. Yeah, so I think he's a pretty strong bet to shoot the ball. I'm also very high on Maxey as a defensive player. And I think that's part of the reason why I have him here. Like if he wasn't a good defender, I'd be pretty skeptical about Maxey. Or I mean, I'd still like him a lot, but I definitely wouldn't have him at 9. The guy works really hard on that end.
Mm-hmm.
and he's strong, 6'6" wingspan. I think he's the type of guy who can chase other guards around screens and stuff like that, be a really strong point of attack defender. So yeah, the steal rate numbers aren't great. Doesn't like create a lot of events, but I think he's going to be solid on that end. Yeah, the fit in Washington, I think is pretty good. I think, playing under Wall and Beal is, it's definitely a good situation.
Yep.
For him, learning from those two guys.
All right. Moving on down to the Phoenix Suns at number 10. This is another interesting pick. I like the fit, especially if he doesn't come in and start right away. It's still a good situation. But who do you think is the best player available at number 10 for the Phoenix Suns?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's Kira Lewis Jr. That thing I was talking about with Riller earlier, where the guys who get to the rim a lot and like have some level of athleticism and aren't tiny, and have just like average shooting, tend to work out. Kira is one of those guys. He's in that group. So that's definitely a good thing for him. I think his floor is as like a third guard or something. Talking again, like with the last three guys I've talked about, like he's going to be very good attacking against RD tilted defenses, just because of his speed.
His speed is crazy.
Yeah, he's very fast, and I think compared with Maxey, I think he has more self-creation equity, just because his first step is very, very good. Like there's definitely a chance he's a pretty good advantage creator. I don't know what level he can get to in that regard, just because, he gets to the rim all the time, but like the finishing there is a little bit sketchy. I think he was at 55% at the rim this season. And he's not a crazy vertical athlete.
But I think once he gets stronger, I think that will have an impact, positive impact on his finishing at the rim, because he's pretty light. I don't know what he's listed at, but he seems like he can't be any more than 175.
Yeah, I think the combine measurements came out for him, and I think he was like 6'3" in shoes, 6'1.5" without shoes, and 180 pounds. So I forget what his wingspan was. So he's put on some weight. But yeah, I still definitely have
quarantine to do that to you.
Yeah, I know. Tyrell Terry too. But yeah, I still have concerns about his finishing, just because he's not like a great vertical athlete, and he still is skinny. Like he's not built like Riller. Defensively, I don't think he's at the level of Maxey, but I think he's still pretty good. Definitely some lapses every now and then, but it's kind of a weird skill. But like his recovery tools are crazy. Like there was a play against Georgia, I think, where they set a screen and he kind of died just because he's so skinny, couldn't get through it. But then some like made his way back into the play, and it might have been Severe Wheeler or something was pulling up, and he got back. Yeah, he got all the way back and like blocked the shot. So like, I think there is something there defensively. I don't think he's going to be a negative defensive player. I don't think he's going to be anything special on that end either. But yeah, I definitely like Kira. I've seen people who are higher on him than this. And I think those people just see him as more of like, or see him as a guy with more advantage creation potential than I do. But, I think there's a chance he reaches that outcome. I think it's relatively slim, but, second side creator, I think he's going to be pretty good either way.
Yeah. I've seen him as high as 8 to the Knicks. I've also heard the comparisons to De'Aaron Fox. He's not De'Aaron.
Yeah.
He's fast. He's fast, but De'Aaron has another gear that not too many people, if anybody, can get to that. But I like Lewis a lot. I think the fit in Phoenix is pretty good. So yeah, and you can bring him off the bench and let Rubio run the show for another year, and then you have a pretty dynamic backcourt with Lewis and Booker. So I like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the other thing about I was going to say quickly, the other thing about like the Fox comp, I'm not a fan of it. I think Lewis is a better shooter already, and Fox was like so far ahead of him as a vertical athlete.
Yeah, but Fox, well, his shooting is inconsistent. His rookie year wasn't that good. I want to say his second year was good, and then it dropped last year.
Yeah, I think Lewis is definitely a better shooter, but Fox as like a vertical athlete is just way ahead.
Yep. All right, well, that wraps it up for today. Because what I want to do is I want to break this into 3 parts. Ooh. So your top 10, your second 10s, and then your last, finish out at 30. And so if you'd be open to coming back on and maybe sometime within the next few days, as long as we get it done before the draft, we're down to about 18 or 19 days. But yeah, man, I enjoyed speaking with you on this episode. Where can the audience reach you or like see your tweets, or do you have a place where that you have mentioned that you wrote some articles? Like, is there a place where you're storing your articles?
Yeah, it's just like a little Google Blogs type thing. The link to that is in my Twitter bio. And you can reach me on Twitter. It's at W_A_Morris. Yeah, I'm pretty active tweeting clips or like statistics or stuff like that, my opinions. So yeah, go follow me over there. And check out the blog if you have time. I have like a little statistical analysis that I did on guard creators. There's an article on Grant Riller, one on Nate Hinton, I think too. So there's some stuff you can check out over there. But yeah, thanks so much for having me, Raphael.
Yeah, no problem. Hopefully I can get you back on for part 2 and part 3. Again, this is Raphael, NBA Draft Junkies with Will Morris. Hopefully you will see more of him with NBA Draft Junkies. I like his insight. He obviously studies the game and not just watches film. I can just tell by the way you describe players. You're watching like the entire games, and you're paying pretty good attention to the details. So I had to reach out to you and have you on, and I'm glad the show's been, in my opinion, I've enjoyed it. Especially when you come out with the with the shockers early in the game. So I like that a lot. But again, it's Raphael, Will Morris, NBA Draft Junkies, and we are out.